Hey everyone, so today I'm gonna talk about the tutorial of basic concept and code demonstration of the GraphQL. So I will split my tutorial into two parts. In first part, I'm gonna talk about the GraphQL's concepts, and on the second part, I'm gonna do the code demonstration to show how to use the GraphQL. So to better understand GraphQL, let's think about a real life scenario. So let's think about you are a car salesman and you have a lot of cars in your parking lot. You really want to sell it. And luckily someone comes in and saw the price and came to you said he want to finance it. That's really good. But before sales to him, you really need to check their credit score based on the company's policy, because you don't want to sell your car to someone who has a poor credit score, right? So what do you want to do next? You want to go to the computer and go to your database in your computer and try to search for that person's name. So let's say that person's name is Jason Lee, and you got a bunch of information about him, such as their gender, their birthday, their spouse, their occupations, their social security numbers. You go through all the information and you finally see, here is his credit score. But do you really want to do that? It's kind of like too complicated and too like you waste a lot of time on unnecessary information. What you want to do is like open the database and try to go to a searching bar with a drop down button and select the field you want to pick. For example, in this case, you want to pick the credit score, and then you immediately got all the information you want. And that's how the GraphQL does. GraphQL is just like the searching box, which gives the clients power and ask for what exactly clients want. So what GraphQL is a query language for API, and it's developed by Meta in 2015. They built GraphQL to speed up their mobile applications by prevent overfetching and underfetching to lower the request sent and increase the application performance. And right now, GraphQL is quite popular. Many companies is using it. For example, Meta, GitHub, Pinterest, Intuit, Coursera, and etc. GraphQL provides the schema of the data in API, and it also gives the clients understandable, fully descriptive datasets. Clients are able to ask for exactly what they need from GraphQL, just like what I showed you in the previous scenario. And GraphQL is actually the substitution of the REST API. And you may wonder what the REST API is. So RESTful is representative state transfer. RESTful API is the interface that two computer systems use to exchange information securely over the internet. Most business applications have to communicate with other internal and third-party applications to perform various tasks. And the REST is the rest of architectural constraint. It's not a protocol or standard. API developer can implement the REST in various ways. So what is their disadvantage and advantage for REST and GraphQL? Like why we are choosing GraphQL? Why not RESTful? So their similarity is that both GraphQL and REST send HTTP request and receive HTTP response, and it's return a JSON response in the same shape. So for their differences is that REST center around the resources, and each resources is identified by a URL. However, GraphQL doesn't use the URL GraphQL doesn't use URL to specify the resources that are available in API. It uses type to distinguish resources. Also, when get data by REST API, we get all the resources, which result in overfetching, which is the first way in the scenario what I talked about in the first section. And in REST API, if you want to fetch two different resources, you need to make two separate calls. However, GraphQL can get many resources in just one query. Let's talk a more characteristic of GraphQL. So in GraphQL, type system make people to easily develop tool. Because there are many useful tools can work with GraphQL. For example, GraphIQL, which is a web interface and run the GraphQL in the browser, which I will show you in the second part called demonstration. And also, GraphQL is available for many different languages. Like, I can use the JavaScript for both the service and the clients. And I can also have the server writing in Python and called by clients writing in Java for Android. And also have another clients coded in Swift and for iOS. Also, GraphQL will let you have your own data and code. Basically, that means GraphQL is a layer that can add on top of your existing code. There is no need to rewrite your entire applications. And GraphQL take care of all the exposing APIs. All of your data and business logic can stay the same here. That's why it's using widely in the technology industry. So how does the GraphQL works? Well, GraphQL works between GraphQL client and backend side. I will show you more detailedly in the code explanation part. Backend and server, which include the auth APIs and core APIs and the Redis. They could aggregate multiple resources requests into a single query, and it also supports subscriptions and mutations. Subscription and mutation, they are both operation types. You may wonder what they are, so I'm gonna explain. First of all, for mutation, in GraphQL, you need to insert, update, or delete data with the mutation. So mutation is a GraphQL operation that allows you to insert new data or modify the existing data on the server side. So you can think about GraphQL mutation same as post, put, patch, and delete requests in REST. Mutation in GraphQL can be categorized under following tabs: insert mutation, update mutation, and delete mutations. It's pretty clear. And what is subscription? So GraphQL subscription is the way of pushing data from a server to a client that choose to listen for real-time messages from the server. Subscriptions are similar to queries in that they specify a set of fields to be passed to a client. But instead of returning a single answer immediately, a result is sent every time a specific event occurs on the server side. A common use case for subscription is to notify the clients of the specific event, such as creating new objects or update fields, or etc. Okay, that's the concept part. How does the GraphQL works in the code? So first of all, after running the npm init, we can have the node project. See here. So for the demo, we need to run the command to install required package. We use this code command to install all the package. Cool. And the first file is client HTML. This is our client-side code. It has 4 elements: button, input, and 2 paragraphs. The button has a one-click event listener. The click in event listener will trigger the function to send the AJAX request. The request will be sent to GraphQL endpoint with the query like this. It contains a name, job, and person, 3 resources, and they all require ID as the parameter, and also ID should be the integer. We can type ID in input. After fetch function returned, it will set 2 paragraphs to the data in response. res.data.names and res.data.jobs. So meanwhile, it will return the res.data.person. For the backend, I use the Express framework and Express GraphQL to support GraphQL. The first step is to build the schema. In this schema, we have defined person and query. In query, we have defined 3 types of resources: name, job, and person. Their types are string, string, and person. Type person has a name and job field, and both of them are strings. So with this schema, the client side can only send this kind of query to server. Then we define the root. Root contains all the resolvers to corresponding resources. For names, it returns a string. If ID equals to 1, then we return Alice. If ID equals 2, we return Bob. If ID equals 3, we return Cassie. If none of this matches, we return wrong ID. So for job, it's similar. If the ID equals to 1, we return student. If ID equals to 2, we return teacher. If ID equals to 3, we return engineer. If none of this matches, we return wrong ID. And for person, it will look up in the fake data's objects. So if the ID in the fake data will return that fake data's ID, and if not, we'll just return the wrong ID. So when we get the query that asks for these resources, we can call the resolver function to handle it and return the result. And the final step is to set up the application and the GraphQL. The application will send to 3300 port. Okay, after we walk through all the code, we can run npm start. Okay, let's see what we got. We can try some thing like we can type 1 and we click get data. We can see we got the name Alice and the job students, and that's what we got for the person. We can try another one. What about 2? The get data will give us the name Bob and job teacher, and person will be like this. So let's try another one. What about 11? See, we got a wrong ID. Why is that? It's because in here, the ID is not in the fake data. That's why we got the wrong ID here. Also for the job and names. GraphQL also have a very convenient tool called GraphQL. It looks like this. What it does is that it provides an API to interact with GraphQL server. We can write different kinds of queries to test our GraphQL server. Let's try some examples. Name ID, yeah, let's run it. You can see the data has the name, which called Alice, and Then we can try another one. Let's try job. The ID equals 1. And this time the job is students. Let's try another one, which is person. And the ID equals to 2. And then we have name and job. What it looks like. Okay, perfect. Now we have the name equals to Bob and the job is teacher. So we can also write a combination of 2 or more resources like this. Yep, let's run it. So now you can see we have the name and person. In person, we have the name of Bob and the job of teachers. But what if we pass an ID? We have to pass an ID. If we don't pass an ID, what will happen? See, if we don't pass an ID, it will throw an error because the ID is necessary, it's mandatory. We have to have it. Since in the code, we wrote that. If we ask for a non-existing field, what will happen? Let's try another example. Yes, it also threw error because it's a non-existing field. So this tool can really help us to debug. And if the schema is defined wrongly, we can quickly find the issue. That's how powerful the GraphQL is. Thank you, that's all my presentations.